in the bud.
True. True.
What's up?
As things for children.
The phenomenal success of Grand Theft Auto 3 has created a rush to match the game's over-the-top violence. A bill introduced in Congress this spring would make it harder for children to get their hands on those games.
Bet. The Grand Theft Auto series has been around for 27 years. It's old enough to have 2 kids and a mortgage payment. For millennials, this series is usually associated with the big 3, San Andreas, Vice City, or GTA 4. While for the most Gen Z, it would be GTA 5, which broke all the records in the franchise. It's hard to imagine a time without a popular GTA game. But there was a time without it. Before 2001, the series wasn't this monolith that dominated gaming culture. The first 2 GTA games were top-down crime simulators. Fun in their own right, but more like quirky niche games than earth-shattering blockbusters. And then GTA 3 dropped. A scrappy little title from a company most people had never heard of. It wasn't supposed to be the game that changed everything, but it did. It connected the dots between the messy experimentation of the 90s and the beginning of dominance of the 2000s. So in this video, I want to show you how GTA 3 took the DNA of the series and spliced it with the right amount of technology, controversy, and timing to not just launch Rockstar into superstardom, but to reshape the entire video game industry. Boot up GTA 3 in 2001, and the first thing you see is rain. Heavy, digital rain pouring over Liberty City. The protagonist, Cloud, has just been betrayed, shot, and left for dead by Catalina. You get dumped into this grimy world with a full-on city breeding around you. This wasn't normal back then. Cities in video games had always been backdrops, static paintings you sprinted past on your way to the real gameplay. Even the so-called detailed ones, like Shenmue's, had structure. Every NPC had a routine, but it all felt like clockwork, rigid, like animatronics in a theme park.
It's easier than explaining it in words.
No, I better not.
Why? Because I'm a woman?
I didn't mean that. I can't right now.
Is that so? That's too bad.
Liberty City was different. Liberty City felt alive. Cars stopped at red lights, pedestrians yelled at each other, random muggings at street corners, gangs patrolling their turf. And if you just randomly shot your gun, suddenly this fragile simulation went into full-on chaos. Pedestrians screamed, cops pulled out weapons, cars swerved. The city didn't just react to you, it resisted you. This was the leap. For the first time ever, players weren't walking through a designed stage, they were living in a system. To help understand how radical this felt, here's what else was around in 2001. Driver 2 had already let you get out of your car, but its city was a ghost town. Sure, there were buildings, but they were just window dressing. No detail, no life, just boxes to drive past. Shenmue was impressive in its attention to detail. NPCs had daily schedules, shops closed at night, weather changed. But the catch was that it was rigid. You were still bound to a strict story flow. It felt more like living diorama than a playground. Meanwhile, GTA 3 handed you the keys to the city and said, do whatever you want. Don't feel like following the story? Don't. Want to spend 3 hours stealing taxis and making money? Go for it. Feel like seeing how many cop cars you can stack in one intersection before the game engine catches fire? Be my guest. That freedom wasn't just novel, it was intoxicating. I don't know about you, but I have this vivid memory from my childhood of using weapon cheats by the hospital, blowing up cars and trying to hold my ground as more and more policemen arrived to stop me. It was just fun. And I can't overstate how much the pedestrians added to the illusion. They didn't just wander around in silence. They talked, they cursed, they made sarcastic comments. One guy yells, "My taxes pay for your salary," at the cops. Another woman shrieks if you so much as bump her shoulder. And it wasn't just filler. That chatter created personality. Not to them as individual NPCs, but to the city. Liberty City wasn't just cars and buildings. It was people. They weren't just there to react to you. They would interact with each other. You'd see arguments, fights, accidents. Things happened independently of you, which in 2001 felt insane. But if Liberty City had a soul, it was the radio. Rockstar could have just thrown in some licensed tracks and called it a day. That alone would have been more than enough for the time. But they went further. They built actual radio stations, complete with DJs, commercials, call-ins, and personalities. Chatterbox FM, hosted by Laszlo, was the crown jewel. a satirical talk radio station where fake callers rambled about conspiracy theories, politics, and bizarre personal problems. It was absurd but also sharp. It mocked American talk culture in a way no other game had attempted. Each station had a distinct vibe. Lips 106 with its pop songs, Double Clef FM blasting opera. They weren't just soundtracks, they were world building. The fake commercials, petsovernight.com, are iconic.
Are you bored with man's best friend?
Sorry, Fido, we're gonna have to drown you.
Why not try man's first cousin? At petsovernight.com, we've got every primate in stock, from spider monkeys to gorillas. You'll love your new best friend.
Mommy, Jim bit me.
Oh yeah, then you just bite him back then, okay, honey?
Petsovernight.com, delivering little bundles of love in a box directly to your door.
If you made it this far, you're my type of people. Make sure to subscribe and let's keep going. The fake commercials, they made the city feel lived in. Like the media around you wasn't just noise, it was part of the satire. Compare that to what other games were doing. Most of them just slapped on a looping background track. Even something as stylish as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which had killer licensed music, still felt like a playlist layered on top of the game. GTA 3's radio was different. It played only when you were in a car, and it was in-universe. It reinforced the idea that Liberty City didn't revolve around you. You were just one listener in a city full of them.
The shop teacher called me today, and Sam made a homemade banana cannon in shop class and was lobbing them across the street at a fast food restaurant. And it's all because of video games. Laszlo, life does not have a reset button.
Right, but this show does. I love that button.
Another thing that GTA 3 did brilliantly is how they basically invented emergent gameplay before the term even existed in mainstream design circles. For example, the side jobs. They weren't just mini-games, they were world-building devices. Steal a cab? You could spend 3 hours doing taxi fares and suddenly realize you'd basically roleplayed as middle-class worker trying to make rent. Your GTA now turned into The Sims with shotguns. Hijack an ambulance? You're suddenly in a paramedic simulation, driving injured NPCs to the hospital. Grab a police car? Now you're role-playing as a vigilante cop, taking down criminals. None of these were required. The game never forced you into them, but their presence told you something crucial. Liberty City wasn't just your playground. It was a city full of roles, systems, and jobs, and you could step into any of them at will. That was mind-blowing at the time. And beyond that, what really made Liberty City sing were the little touches. Rain slicking the roads at night so the city looked like a crime thriller. Neon signs glowing through the fog. The way bridges locked until you progressed, creating the illusion of a massive city gradually opening to you. Police radios crackling when your wanted level went up. Every piece of it reinforced that Liberty City was more than a stage. It was the main character. Especially when the main protagonist never says a word. And if you talk to people who played GTA 3 back then, you'll probably find the same story repeated. They would boot it up, start intending to play a mission or two, and 3 hours later realize they hadn't touched the story at all. They were just living in Liberty City. Most likely with cheats, fucking shit up. But still, that's the heartbeat of GTA 3. Not just missions, not just guns, but the city itself. It was the first time a digital world felt like you could live in it. And that feeling of being one person in a system bigger than yourself is what blew people's minds in 2001.
It's as close as you can get to killing someone without being arrested or really killing someone.
There are plenty of violent video games on the market today, but what sets Grand Theft Auto 3 apart is the game's stunning realism.
One of the most radical things about GTA 3 wasn't just the size of the city, or even the freedom it gave you. It was the fact that for the first time, crime itself wasn't just permitted in the video game. It was the point. Think about how games usually handled this before 2001. If you shoot a civilian in GoldenEye, the mission either failed instantly or you lost points. If you killed a villager in an RPG, you got punished by some morality system. Even in games that dabbled in the bad behavior, stuff like Carmageddon or Postal, it was all surface level shock. You ran over pedestrians because the game told you that's what you were supposed to do. It was cartoonish, almost slapstick. GTA 3 wasn't slapstick, it was different. Here the crime wasn't accidental byproduct of playing wrong, it was the central fantasy. You weren't punished for stealing cars or blowing up a police convoy, you were rewarded. Missions literally were dependent on your ability to think and act like a criminal, and that was unique. The protagonist of GTA 3, Cloud, is often criticized for being silent. No voice, no monologues, no arc in the traditional sense. But in a weird way, that silence was genius. Cloud wasn't meant to be a character you empathized with. He was a vessel, a blank slate you could project yourself onto. When he got betrayed in the opening cutscene, it didn't feel like a backstory we were being spoon-fed. It felt like our revenge mission. His silence gave the player space to inhabit him, and in a game where the entire draw was to do whatever you want, that worked better than the wisecracking anti-hero would have.
8-Ball's got some business upstairs. Or maybe you could do me a favor. One of my girls needs a ride, so grab a car and pick up Misty from the clinic, then bring her back here. Remember, no one messes with my girls. So keep your hands on the wheel. If you don't mess this up, maybe there'll be more work for you. Now get out of here.
And then there were the missions themselves. They weren't epic quests to save the world. They weren't about chosen ones or heroes. They were small, nasty street-level crimes. Getaway driving, car bombings, drug trafficking, taking out rival gang members with whatever weapon you could find. These weren't sanitized Hollywood-style action beats. They felt like the dirty day-to-day work of organized crime. It hit differently because the cultural backdrop too. In 2001, America was obsessed with crime drama. Goodfellas was still fresh in the collective memory, Heat had defined the look and feel of modern shootouts, and The Sopranos was in the middle of exploding into a cultural juggernaut on HBO. GTA 3 slotted right into that world. It felt like someone had taken all those gangster movies and shows and handed you the controls. And what made it even more potent was the way the world around you reinforced that fantasy. The Mafia families weren't faceless quest givers. They were characters you bumped into their businesses, men with recognizable voices and temperaments. The Triads ran their restaurants. The Yakuza prowled their corners. The Colombians had their turf. When you took jobs from one group, you pissed off another, and suddenly parts of the city became hostile territory. The gangs weren't just story beats. They changed how you experienced Liberty City minute to minute. And unlike a lot of the mature games of that era, GTA 3 wasn't desperate to scream at you about how edgy it was. It didn't pause the action to give you a morality meter. It didn't wink and tell you this was all tongue-in-cheek. The tone was serious, even when it was absurd. You could drive into a shootout, 20 cars exploding around you, pedestrians screaming, and the game didn't break character. It wasn't trying to cushion you from the fantasy. It trusted you to sit in it, to own it, and that trust felt like freedom. Playing it back then, it was like stepping into forbidden territory. Here was a game that not only let you be the bad guy, it structured itself entirely around that role.
In a moment, sweetheart. I got a little business to take care of. I got a little job for you, pal. The Farrelly brothers have owed me money for too long and they need to be taught some respect. Lips Farrelly is stuffing his fat face in the St. Mark's Bistro, so steal his car and take it to 8-Ball's bomb shop up in Harwood. You know 8-Ball, right? Once he's fitted it with a bomb, go park the car where you found it. Then sit back and watch the whole show. But hurry up, you won't be eating forever.
The result was a crime simulator that felt both grounded and outrageous. Grounded because the crimes were small and recognizable. Outrageous because how far the simulation would let you push it. You could spend hours carefully climbing the criminal ladder, or you could stand on a rooftop with a sniper rifle and see how long you could hold out before the army showed up. Both were valid ways to play. Both were fun. And that freedom to live out both the fantasy of being a professional gangster and the fantasy of being a chaotic lunatic was what hooked people. It blurred the line between story and sandbox in a way that hadn't been done before. Of course, this was also why the game became such a cultural flashpoint. Parents didn't see the subtle satire. They saw their kid mowing down pedestrians with a stolen fire truck laughing as the police shot at them. But to the people who played it, it wasn't just shock value. It was a new kind of narrative experience. For better or worse, it gave players permission to step into the shoes of a criminal, not as a parody, not as a game over material, but as a legitimate way of existing in a video game world. And once players had tasted that kind of freedom, there was no going back.
You can do all these other activities that are not necessarily part of the given path designed by the developer.
That world takes interactive gaming to a new level. Pass pedestrians on the street and you can overhear snatches of their conversation.
No families, no respect.
Don't like the music in the car you just hijacked?
You are no good.
Change the radio station to something more to your liking.
Although the violent content gets a lot of play, what the game designers have actually achieved beneath that is really amazing. It's amazing stuff.
The best way to understand GTA 3's impact is to look how completely unprepared the industry was for it. In 2001, nobody expected a weird, gritty game about carjacking and gang wars to outsell polished blockbuster franchises. And yet that's exactly what happened. GTA 3 wasn't a modest success. It became the highest-selling game of 2001, beating out giants like Final Fantasy X, Metal Gear Solid 2, and even Halo. On the PlayStation 2 alone, it would go on to sell more than 14 million copies, a number that, at the time, was absurd. And it didn't just sell copies, it took over the culture. Suddenly GTA wasn't a niche curiosity, it was the game everyone was talking about. It was the reason kids were begging their parents for a PlayStation 2. It was the disc being passed around at school, the subject to news reports, the one title that could sell a console on its own. Sony practically owed Rockstar a fruit basket filled with cash. GTA 3 turned the PS2 from a cool machine into the machine.
I just think it makes it more exciting because you're not supposed to have it. So I think that's why a lot of people our age buy it.
Actually, they talked their parents into buying it for them. With its M or mature rating, Grand Theft Auto is not intended for anyone younger than 17. Even so, Lawrence Jones convinced his mother to buy the game.
Developers meanwhile were scrambling, because GTA 3 didn't just succeed, it rewrote the rules of what success looked like. Up until then, most quote-unquote big games followed a very traditional template. They were linear, they told tight stories, and the player followed the script. GTA 3 ripped up that template and said, what if the story is whatever the player decides to do? And the copycats came fast. Activision pumped out True Crime, Streets of LA in 2003, basically GTA with a police badge slapped on. Sony bankrolled The Getaway, hoping a grittier London setting would steal some thunder. Even Driver, the series that once looked like GTA's closest rival, tried to reinvent itself with Driver. With a 3. It was a thing. A game so transparently desperate to ride the GTA wave that it became a joke for how badly you can botch a sequel. And those are just the direct clones. The real influence was broader. Suddenly every major publisher wanted an open world. Ubisoft leaned into it with Assassin's Creed. Microsoft tried it with Crackdown. The ripple effects didn't stop with design. GTA 3 changed how games were sold. Before, most publishers marketed their games on features. Better graphics, longer campaigns, new weapons. GTA wasn't marketed like that. It was marketed on freedom. Trailers didn't just show you missions. They showed you doing whatever the hell you wanted. Throwing nades from rooftops, stealing cars, picking fights, spinning out into chaos. It wasn't just a product, it was a vibe. And of course, players started expecting freedom in every big budget game they bought. Suddenly a game that railroaded you felt old-fashioned. That open world wasn't a niche feature anymore. It was the standard. The craziest part is how quickly the industry pivoted. Just 3 years after GTA 3, the market was flooded with sandbox titles. And by 2008, when GTA 4 dropped, the entire AAA space had restructured itself around the idea that the open world was the holy grail. You can trace almost every modern blockbuster back to GTA 3's impact. Assassin's Creed, Skyrim, Cyberpunk, even Elden Ring, a game that couldn't be more different in tone, is built on the assumption that players crave the freedom to step off the path and get lost in a system. And look, it's easy to point out how the GTA 3's freedom was limited by today's standards. The city wasn't that big, the systems were fragile, the missions got repetitive. But in 2001, it all felt infinite. It felt like stepping into another dimension of what games could be. That's why I think of GTA 3 less as a game and more as a pivot point, a fault line in the industry. Everything that came before belonged to one era, and everything after belonged to another. Of course, not everyone was thrilled with this new direction. For all developers who embraced the GTA formula, there were others grumbling that Rockstar had set an impossible bar. Bigger worlds, bigger budgets, bigger expectations. Making games suddenly meant competing with Liberty City, and that was a nightmare. But no one could ignore it. GTA 3 forced every studio, every publisher to reckon with the question, why should players follow our script when Rockstar is letting them write their own? And that's why GTA 3 didn't just sell copies, it reshaped the very idea of what a blockbuster game was supposed to look like. But GTA 3 didn't just shake up the video game industry. The controversy it stirred up blew the doors open to the wider world. This wasn't just gamers talking about a hit new title. This was politicians, news anchors, parents, all losing their collective minds over a disc you could buy at Walmart. And the funny thing is that outrage didn't hurt GTA 3. It made it so much bigger. In the early 2000s, video games were still fighting for cultural legitimacy. They were thought of as toys for kids, or maybe for nerds who never grew up. Sure, adults maybe played Doom or Madden or FIFA, but the mainstream idea was still, games are for children. And then along comes GTA 3, a game where you could hijack an ice cream truck, run over 20 pedestrians in a row, and then start a massive shootout against the police. Naturally, the headlines wrote themselves. Murder simulator, crime training software. Jack Thompson, the lawyer who became the face of anti-game crusades, made a career out of trying to ban GTA. Senators like Joe Lieberman, who'd already gone after Mortal Kombat in the 90s, were suddenly back on TV, warning parents that this new game would corrupt the youth. But thankfully Rockstar didn't back down. They didn't issue sanitized press statements about how games are art or it's just a small part of the gameplay. Nah, they leaned into it.
The original game was based on watching too many American movies and watching all that overhead helicopter chase footage, which was the only camera we could use due to the limitations on the old hardware. But we always wanted to make an action movie when you actually felt like you were controlling a real character, and that's what we've done this time.
They turned the controversy into part of the game's identity. It's wild to look back on some of their ads. Instead of downplaying the violence, they highlighted it. Instead of pretending GTA was family-friendly, they put its rated M for mature label front and center. It was almost like they were saying, yeah, your parents hate this game. That's exactly why you want to play it. This is not a revolutionary tactic. The music industry did the same with artists like Eminem, and that worked. For teenagers especially, GTA 3 became more than just a hit game. It became contraband. Owning it was proof you weren't a kid anymore. Sneaking a copy past your parents or convincing your uncle to buy it for you felt like smuggling. It felt dangerous. It felt like Grand Theft Auto.
The irony in all this, according to experts who study child development, is that the louder the complaints about violence in video games, the greater the demand among teenagers.
Sayonara, hookers.
It is marketing buzz based on one of the basic rules of adolescence. Teenagers desire the very thing they are not supposed to have.
And ironically, while the media was panicking about kids learning to kill hookers for fun, GTA 3 was doing something smarter. Beneath all the chaos, the game was satirical. The radio stations, the fake ads, the over-the-top gangsters. All of it was a parody of American consumerism, violence, and politics. Laszlo's Chatterbox FM wasn't just filler. It was Rockstar poking fun at the absurdity of talk radio and conspiracy culture. PetsOvernight.com wasn't just a gag. It was a dig at the rising .com bubble and the ridiculousness of online consumer culture. But of course the critics didn't notice that, or chose not to notice that. To them, GTA 3 was nothing but carnage. And that disconnect between how the media framed it and how the players experienced it is what gave Rockstars their edge. They weren't just selling a video game, they were selling rebellion. It also helped cement Rockstar's persona as the bad boys of gaming. Nintendo was the family-friendly brand, Sega was the scrappy underdog, Sony was the sleek, stylish one, but Rockstar was dangerous. They were the company your parents didn't trust. They cultivated that image deliberately. From the leather jackets to the unapologetic interviews, they positioned themselves as rock stars, not developers. And GTA 3 was their debut album. Loud, offensive, and impossible to ignore. And that branding stuck. Even today, more than 20 years later, Rockstar games carry a sense of danger. Games they release stand on a different level as any other AAA publisher. While most of the industry has gone to the Hollywood route of checklist representations, copy-paste open worlds with no depth, Rockstar still has balls to tell a story and stick true to their own vision. Their game library might not be as large as Ubisoft or EA, but the impact of their games is often 10 times bigger. Every time a new GTA comes out, the conversation isn't just about graphics or missions. It's about whether Rockstar will cross some line again, whether the media will freak out again.
Never has there been an opening like this in the entertainment industry. This week, Grand Theft Auto 5 pulled in $1 billion in sales in 3 days. No movie or music release has ever come close to that. And as with earlier versions of the game, it is extremely violent. Here's Elaine Quijano.
Grand Theft Auto 5 allows video game players to assume the role of gangsters, committing almost any crime imaginable. Bank robberies, car thefts, often murder.
That cycle started with GTA 3, a cultural flashpoint. It was proof that video games could provoke the same kind of outrage, the same kind of debate as music or film. And in a weird way, that controversy helped legitimize the medium. Because if politicians were trying to ban it, if news anchors were ranting about it, then clearly video games had grown into something powerful enough to be worth arguing over. So when I say GTA 3 changed everything, I'm not just talking about the technology or the gameplay. I'm talking about this moment.
Leave us alone for a minute. The Colombian cartel is making spank somewhere in Liberty, but we don't know where. And they seem to know everything we're doing before we do. We got us a rat. There's a guy named Curly Bob, works the bar at Luigi's. He's been throwing more money around than he's earning. He ain't pimping or pushing, so he must be talking. He usually gets a taxi home after work, so follow him. And if he's ratting us out, kill him.
Booting up GTA 3 today is a strange experience. On one hand, you can see every seam, every limitation. The controls are stiff, the shooting is clunky, and the lack of modern conveniences is actually brutal. There are no mission checkpoints, no generous autosaves. If you fail a mission, you're not just restarting from the last shootout. You're driving all the way back across the city, picking up the same weapons, redoing the same setup. Liberty City, which once felt endless, now feels like a toy box you can tip over in a weekend. But that roughness doesn't erase its magic. In a weird way, it sharpens it. Playing GTA 3 in 2025 feels like cracking open a time capsule. You're not just revisiting a game, you're revisiting an era when everything about it was shocking and new.
But these boys also admit that the line between fantasy and reality is not always so clear.
It's like, you gotta stop it. It's like, you can't. My palms get sweaty and I get like nervous if I'm about to do something hard in the video game. I don't know, it's like an adrenaline rush.
Someone would think if it's that easy on the game, you could probably do it in real life.
Critics worry that these increasingly ferocious games are desensitizing children to violence.
People often say Vice City is the real start of GTA's golden age. Tommy Vercetti actually had a voice. The 80s Miami aesthetic was iconic, and the soundtrack slapped so hard it practically sold the game on its own. And sure, Vice City polished GTA into something sleeker. San Andreas blew the doors open even wider. 3 cities, countryside, skill systems, customization. By the time we got to GTA 4, Rockstar had gone cinematic, bringing gritty realism and character drama into the mix. And then GTA 5. Well, GTA 5 became the most profitable piece of entertainment ever made. Full stop. But none of that happens without GTA 3. It's the skeleton key that unlocked everything. And yet when you go back to it, it doesn't feel just like a prototype. It feels like something unique. Part of that is the atmosphere. GTA 3's Liberty City is grimy, muted, permanently stuck in an eternal drizzle. The soundtrack is weirder, the silence of cloud makes it colder, and the city feels more hostile than later Rockstar worlds. Vice City was flamboyant, San Andreas was sprawling, GTA 5 was glossy, a parody of California excess. GTA 3 is none of those things. It's claustrophobic, it's dirty, it's cynical in a way that almost feels indie compared to the blockbusters that followed. And maybe that's why, in 2025, there's something really refreshing about it. Modern games bend over backwards to be accommodating. Checkpoints every 5 minutes, difficulty sliders, tutorials popping up like an overbearing parent reminding you to eat your vegetables. GTA 3 doesn't care if you're frustrated. It doesn't care if you quit. It's uncompromising. And in a way that makes it feel more alive. That said, I don't recommend playing it in its raw, original 640 by 480 resolution with tank controls and frame rate drops. But with a couple of mods, silent patch to fix the bugs, widescreen support to make it playable on a modern monitor, the original GTA 3 is still the best way to experience it. The so-called Definite Edition remaster that Rockstar pushed out in 2021 only proved that point. It sanded off the grit, brightened up the colors, replaced the atmosphere with something that felt plasticky and lifeless. It was technically updated, but spiritually hollow. The original, with a few tweaks to make it run, still captures the magic in a way the remaster can't touch.
sorry, babe. I'm an ambitious girl. You're just small time.
Playing GTA 3 today is a reminder of two things. First, just how far the series and the industry has come since 2001. We've gone from blocky little city with a silent protagonist to cinematic epics, where every street corner is motion captured and every car has custom physics. But second, it's a reminder that sometimes rough edges are what give a game its soul. GTA 3 isn't impressive now because of its size or polish. It's impressive because of its audacity of asking what if the world itself is the game. It's still a prototype, but one that still has its own charm, its own identity. And for players willing to look past the clunky controls and dated visuals, it's still capable of delivering the same shock it did in 2001. The shock of stepping into Liberty City and realizing for the first time that the city was alive and that you could do whatever you wanted in it. That's why it's still worth playing. Not to marvel at how big it felt, but to appreciate the raw moment when games changed. When Rockstar, almost by accident, cracked open a new dimension of what this medium could be. It doesn't need to feel modern, it doesn't need to be updated, because the roughness is part of the story. Playing it today isn't just about playing a game, it's about remembering where it all started.
I know a place on the edge of the red light district where we can lay low, but my hands are all messed up, so you better drive, brother.
When you strip away the nostalgia, the clunky controls, the pixelated rain, what you're left with is a single undeniable fact. GTA 3 changed the medium. It took a genre that barely existed and made it mainstream. It gave us Liberty City as a character, crime as a playground, satire as world building, controversy as marketing. It turned video games from toys into trouble, and from entertainment into culture. And while the series would go on to become bigger, louder, sharper, with Vice City's neon glow, San Andreas sprawl, GTA 4's grit, GTA 5's unstoppable machine, it all started here. A scrappy little game in 2001 that nobody expected to explode the way it did. This wasn't just the first 3D Grand Theft Auto, this was the pivot point. The moment video games as we know them today began. This was the GTA where it all started. This was the GTA that changed everything.
13-year-old boys is carrying out a reign of terror on screen.
Oh man, this is bad.
That would put them on the nation's most wanted list in real life.
It's my general object of this game. Kill as many people as you can, get as many stars as you can.
They're deep into a video game called Grand Theft Auto 3.
If you're still hungry for more GTA deep dives, I've also got one on San Andreas, and plenty of others too. There's actually quite a few of them now. And if you want to support this channel, make sure to hit subscribe to let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.